a criminal defense attorney, and she is very aware of social media versus First Amendment rights. This is a very interesting case, and how do the justices sort out what could be First Amendment versus threats? Well, it's a fine line, I feel like.
It is. It's a fine line, and the justices have to balance what would be a domestic violence victim, which the victim in this case is claiming, and also infringing on freedom of speech. The justices know that as Supreme Court justices, they have the final say. In this case, although it's particular to these facts, this case will have far-reaching effects on all freedom of speech. It will affect all of us, because this case will be used going forward.
Right. And we were talking just a second ago about the fact that the justices brought up, even on the record, Eminem's lyrics, because very famously, many years ago, Eminem rapped about killing his estranged wife, Kim Mathers. So, I mean, what is art then? I mean, it kind of changes the idea of what art could be.
Yeah, Justice Edgeworth, as you said, read on the record to the government and said, how do you answer for this? And he said, well, that was just entertainment. That was in front of millions of people. And the justice came back and said, well, he has to get his start somewhere. I believe that the point that he was also trying to make is that the judicial system works in a way that you have to know that something's a crime. You have other artists out here doing the very same thing. And this defendant couldn't know that this is a crime until he's sitting in prison.
Right.
And I think he makes a very good point.
So how, I mean, lots of people have a social media account. Lots of people have a Facebook. Lots of people have a Twitter account. How do they know what they're posting? Or should they be more concerned about what they're posting?
I do think that they should be concerned with what they're posting, because it's put out there for the world to see and you can't take it back. But a lot of people consider social media as just venting. I'm venting to my friends, my social media friends. And even in cases where the judge issues a protective order, he never says you can't vent to friends, you can't talk about this person. So now I think people are considering this, saying, I'm just venting. Imagine how many times he said things in anger, and now it will be held against him in a criminal court.
Yeah, but what about in the case that the Supreme Court is dealing with, what about his, his ex-wife, who thinks that his art is directed at her and it's threatening it to her? She feels it's a reasonable threat. I mean, he wrote some really nasty things about wanting to kill you. There's thousands of ways to kill you. I'm not going to rest until your body is a mess. I mean, he's quoting lyrics, but this ex-wife felt that that's directed right at her.
Well, although he probably was directing it at her, considering their situation, criminal threats, even the law in California under Penal Code 422, there also has to be an intent. So even though she feels threatened, that's not the end of the law. They have to prove that he intended to threaten her.
To follow through with.
Right. Okay. And it has to be an imminent fear that he's going to follow through with those threats.
But how could the justices decide what's intended? How can a justice decide what's in this guy's mind?
And that's what the justices have put on the record to say, we have an intent issue. How do we know? You and I were saying earlier about, people say the most horrible things and then put an LOL at the end or a smiley face. But on social media, it's so hard to know what they're actually intending to do. And that is something before the Supreme Court now that they're really mulling over.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a daunting task. Because you can't get inside someone's mind or figure out. I mean, and we've seen in the past other people, put things out on social media and then follow through on it. So how do you decide?
Well, the government also made a good point in their oral arguments. They said through search warrants, go through other things that he said through his phone record. He may have said other things that have been overt acts to show that he was going to follow through with it. Going just based on social media, I think, is a slippery slope for all cases. If just social media, they will use this case. Yes, they will use this case to infringe upon freedom of speech cases in all other areas, not just in this particular case. Although this case is distasteful, it's disgusting, the things that he said, he still does have freedom of speech, and we do have to be concerned with the outcome of this case and how it would affect us.
Yeah, and everyone's right to post whatever they want.
Exactly.
I mean, that's part of our founding fathers, rights for everybody in this country.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Deanne, for coming in. Very interesting topic, and the Supreme Court justices will be issuing a ruling on this hopefully sometime next year. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. There